Just remember this, Mr. Potter, that this rabble you're talking about, they do most of the working and paying and living and dying in this community. Well, is it too much to have them work and pay and live and die in a couple of decent rooms and a bath?
There's not many Christmas movies I can think of that have nothing to do with Santa Claus.
Santa's coming to town!
Santa! Oh my God!
Nothing to do with consumerism.
No, I want an official red undercover nice and 200 jet money by the Lego rifle.
And romance isn't the main concern. There are a few Christmas movies that attempt to say something significant, something important, something beyond just good old family values. And I think the king of all these Christmas movies is It's a Wonderful Life. I grew up watching It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas Eve, so I'm a bit biased, but I also think it's a testament to its ability to speak to audiences across generations almost 8 decades later. I remember thinking growing up, why do we watch this movie every year? Maybe there was something valuable in it that I was missing.
Dance by the light of the moon. What'd you wish when you threw that rock?
And once I started watching it with that eye, I fell in love with It's a Wonderful Life. I mean, I love the corny jokes, the cheesy romance, the black and white grain, all of it. To this day, I use It's a Wonderful Life as my answer when people ask me, what's your favorite movie?
Why don't you kiss her instead of talking her to death?
Want me to kiss her, huh?
Oh, youth is wasted on the wrong people.
But more than just the aesthetic, I love its message, and I think it has endured the better part of a century because it speaks to a deeply personal challenge we all face. How are we supposed to live in a world that can be so hard to live in? What follows is my best attempt at convincing you why you should watch It's a Wonderful Life this year.
Hee-haw, hello, Sam. How are you?
It's a Wonderful Life isn't a comedy, but every time I watch it, I forget how smart its humor is.
Here, you.
Tell Mary to get on the extension.
You talk.
But it's on the extension week.
I am not.
But there are so many scenes where I laugh out loud every time.
Help me down. Help you down.
The jokes are just so relatable. They feel real, like I've seen them play out in real life before.
Why, did you hear that, Annie?
I heard it's about time one of you lunkheads said it.
And I find myself smiling in anticipation before the punchlines are even delivered.
A toast to Mama Dollar and to Papa Dollar. And if you want to keep this old building and loan in business, you better have a family real quick.
I wish they were rabbits.
I wish there were too.
Like I said, this movie isn't a comedy, and it's good for many other reasons, but I had to at least mention its humor before moving on. For being such a personal story, It's a Wonderful Life has a surprisingly large sense of scale. It spans the entire life of George Bailey from childhood to adulthood. When you cover that many years, you can both spend time in smaller stories about a person's day-to-day life, like helping a pharmacist deliver pills to a patient, while also showing these day-in, day-out activities as the building blocks of life. We get to focus on the specific while keeping in mind how it contributes to the general, like a thread in a tapestry. So we see many specific days and nights of George Bailey's life, all to help us understand who this man is and how he became George Bailey. It's like a grand biopic, but instead of looking at important historical figures like Oppenheimer or Napoleon, it focuses on a seemingly insignificant young man who never even left his hometown. I just can't think of any other popular Christmas movies that cover several decades of a person's life, and certainly not so well. And because it covers so much of life, the movie feels meaningful and significant, almost epic in what it says about being human.
A young man who has to sit by and watch his friends go places because he's trapped. Yes, sir, trapped into frittering his life away playing nursemaid to a lot of garlic eaters.
One of the most long-lasting themes of the movie can be summarized by the saying, "Comparison is the thief of all joy." I think anybody watching It's a Wonderful Life can relate to George as he watches his friends go off to make tons of money, travel the world, make headline news, and just do incredible things, all while he is consumed with frustration at missed opportunities and the mundane life that he now lives. That sounds to me like your average hour on Instagram.
I offered to let George in on the ground floor in plastics, and he turned me down cold.
Oh, now don't rub it in.
I'm not rubbing it in.
But I find comfort in seeing a movie from the 40s address this tendency to compare ourselves with our friends. It reminds me that Humans are basically the same no matter the time period, and modern technology is just the most recent way of experiencing jealousy and discontent.
Why do we have to live here in the first place and stay around this measly, crummy old town?
George, what's wrong?
Wrong everything, Troy. You call this a happy family. Why do we have to have all these kids?
Of course, the movie doesn't just identify these timeless problems. It offers a potential hope.
You see, George, you really had a wonderful life. Don't you see what a mistake it would be to throw it away?
A man giving up his dreams and passions for the good of his family and community isn't really a story that's told anymore, let alone presented in a positive light.
I couldn't face being cooped up for the rest of my life in a shabby little office. I'd go crazy. I want to do something big and something important.
You know, George, I feel that in a small way we're doing something important.
In today's culture that romanticizes individualism, most of the stories we tell are about the individual pursuing their dreams and society conforming to those desires. And don't get me wrong, I think those are valuable stories, but if we lose sight of our responsibility for each other, if we think the purpose of our lives is just about fulfilling our own dreams, we're missing something crucial. So we also need to tell stories about sacrificing for the greater good, about putting aside our personal preferences when others need us most. When life's pressures eventually overwhelm George Bailey, he considers ending everything. And the angel, Clarence, gives him the opportunity to see what life would be like if he'd never been born. As a kid, I always thought this kind of missed the point. I mean, George was considering ending his life, not never being born. I always thought it would be more fitting to show George how his friends and family would react to his demise, to convince him to not go through with it. But I've gotten older, and as I've started to encounter even a little of the hardness of life, George Bailey's dilemma feels a bit more relatable. I've realized it is one thing to not want to die, but it is another to actually want to be alive. George recognizes that his death would hurt the people he loves, but that doesn't stop him from wishing he'd never been born at all. He is still longing to not exist. He just wishes there was a way it could happen without hurting other people. And maybe you resonate with that attitude sometimes. But Clarence is determined to show George why his life is worth living, even when it's difficult. He shows him how his life made the world a better place. He saved his brother. He cared for his community by providing affordable homes. He had a family. The world was better with him in it. And the movie's argument for living isn't just live because others need you. Not only did others benefit from his life, George himself enjoyed life. That joy was just overshadowed by the encroaching worries. Things like the embrace of his beautiful wife, the hilarious chaos of raising his massive family, the fulfillment of being a part of something larger than himself. He may not have built skyscrapers for thousands to marvel at, but he did build homes that changed the lives of hundreds of families. And that brings a sense of personal fulfillment and satisfaction. Life's joy came not in accomplishing all his goals and desires, but by living a modest life that was just as fulfilling and made a difference. He just couldn't see it because the difficulties of life were louder and in his face. It can be tempting to see all of life through the most cynical lens. But that's why I think everyone should watch It's a Wonderful Life. It's why I make an effort to watch it every year. We need to intentionally take time to look back and reflect on our lives, to remember that no matter how difficult life can be, it is a gift just to exist. It's important to be able to say, I'm glad that I am here. And even though life sure isn't perfect, that doesn't mean it's not wonderful.